Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the More Magic Book Club podcast. Today is a very special and fun episode. I have a very special guest who's joining me to talk about mythology retellings and why they're important and why they're fun to write and read and why we love them. So today I'm joined by Lauren J. Bear. Hello, welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I think that we need a lot more magic in our lives. So this is such an appropriate podcast for our time and place. As you mentioned, my name is Lauren J. Bear, and I right now my novels primarily retell old stories where the female characters are centered, and I try to really focus on the perspective and experience of these ancient female characters in a way that also kind of comments on the modern situation of women.
Hmm.
And I am based in Seattle and I have three kids.
And a dog, I believe.
Yes, and a dog who might show up while we're doing this.
We can't forget the dogs, or they will show up.
Yeah.
And for everyone who's on video, this I'm currently reading. I don't know if I could fit the whole thing in. Aphrodite in Pieces, and I love the cover. It's so like her face is kind of cut off in the middle, which I feel like is it's just intriguing. Like why do you want to read it? And yeah, it's so fun. So I'm thank you so much for joining for me for this conversation because I am having like a mythology moment where we read Circe in June. Not this was not planned, but so we had planned out the books last fall, and then we read Circe in June, and then the Odyssey like movie came out, and at the same time I was like, oh my gosh, like that just happened, and then I'm like in the mood for that. So I love that you are here where we can talk about because I'm assuming you've done a lot of research to write all of these books, and you know a lot.
I have. And, I probably should have mentioned the titles of my books. I'm not always so great at the self-promoting. I'm still learning that. But my first book, Medusa's Sisters, is obviously a Greek mythology retelling,
Hmm.
as well as Aphrodite in Pieces, which you just shared. Then my second book, my middle child, is Mother of Rome. And this one is a Roman mythology. And it is still, though, like inextricably tied to the Trojan War and the Odyssey because it follows, Virgil's Aeneid and then how the Trojan kind of refugees merged with the Latin tribes and then led
Mm.
to Romulus and Remus. So all three of these works do connect in certain ways to the characters, that are in the Odyssey and a lot of those plot lines as well.
Hmm. That's so interesting. So in that one, because I mean, for Aphrodite in Pieces, I picked it up knowing, okay, it's gonna be kind of magical because it's about this goddess, you know? So for that, where it's this Mother of Rome, where it's about like kind of how Rome came to be, it sounds like, is that one also kind of fantastical or is it more historical fiction?
I think that if I had to put myself in a genre box, which I think all writers are a little hesitant to do, I would
Hmm.
say historical fantasy
Okay.
because um because this isn't like a high fantasy where I'm creating my own world. I'm writing stories that operate in a real historical time period. And of course, there's historical elements, right? There are
Mhm.
gods and goddesses and superpowers and monsters and all these things. But at the same time, like Aphrodite's not going to eat a tomato because that's a New World vegetable. And like it wouldn't have been on, a Greek centerpiece at the buffet.
Hmm.
So you really do have to do a lot of research, not just in like the primary source material, which are these usually these like ancient texts that we now have such amazing access and translations that are available so easily for us.
Hmm.
But also doing the historical research. What did the world look like at this time period? What were the customs? What was the food? What was the environment like? It's a
Hmm.
lot of work. And I think actually I'm like super nerdy at my core and I love learning things. So I have to remind myself in the process, like, Lauren, you're not writing a thesis on, ancient Latium. You're writing a novel, with compelling characters and stories. So like maybe lay off the like ancient poison research that you're doing and like focus, girl.
But we love a good ancient poison.
I know,
So
I know. I always joke with my husband that like if the FBI looked at my computer, they would 100% think I'm a serial killer because it's just like, like how long does it take to die by strangulation? Or like, can you like what poison kills you the fastest? Like I look like a psycho.
that's so interesting. Now I will try to stay on topic, but I'm really like, what were ancient poisons and
I
how are they
know,
different than modern poisons?
totally.
It's so yeah, it's so fascinating. Well, one thing that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on because I was kind of, like reading about this before we met to talk about this today and just thinking about like mythology because this has always been one of my favorite like subgenres of reading
Right.
because it's just so like I think it's a little more accessible because you already know the characters because like Zeus, and he has his thunderbolts and Aphrodite is the goddess of love and like all of these so you don't have to discover the world building in the same way as like you said like a secondary world fantasy. But something that I think is really interesting is that these are they're thousands of years old, these stories, and they were created to explain a world before we understood how it existed, like it's the sun came up not because we're like the earth is rotating, but because, the god of the sun gets in his chariot and he brings it across the sky. And it's like the ocean is upset because Poseidon's upset, not because of like the currents and I don't know. I'm not a like meteorologist to tell you why the ocean is bad, but but maybe it is Poseidon. I don't know, but I think it's interesting because a lot of the retellings are also commenting on our world, and that's such a different world. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, or I don't know, how do you feel about all that as a writer and a reader?
Totally. And I can answer this in kind of two parts. The first is before I became a writer, like in my past life, I was a middle school teacher. And
Mm.
at least in California and Washington State where I was teaching, sixth grade is kind of like the classical world
Oh,
year where
okay.
you do the ancient Rome and the ancient Greece. So I would teach kind of like a cursory PG version of mythology to the kiddos. And we would talk about oral tradition inevitably, right? And I always said to them, I think kind of oral tradition existed for three reasons. One is like what you were saying about the sun. It's like to explain things that we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
The second is I think parents could use these stories to kind of give like a moral baseline or guideline to their kids, right? It's easier to remember not to lie when you've heard the boy who cried wolf than sometimes like a mom just saying like don't lie or people are going to stop believing you, right? But like the boy who cried wolf, that story sticks with you. It's kind of haunting, it's scary, right? And then the third reason is just to be entertained because we're humans and we are addicted to story. Like even when we go to sleep at night, our brains stay awake all night telling stories to ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of like the reasons why I think this oral tradition has been such a core component of who we are as humans. And then there is when I retell a story or I pick a character that maybe it's a character that no one's ever heard of before, or maybe it's just a character who's famous, like Aphrodite, but has never really been given a perspective, like a why for why
Mm-hmm.
she does the things she does. When I take that character, I'm rewriting them or reimagining them with, of course, my own lived experiences, but also my observations of the world around me, right? And how I've seen women interact and be treated by this world. So all of that comes together when you're trying to do a retelling. And then even going back to what I was saying about the research, it's also kind of this like tricky balancing act you have to do where you want to honor the source material, honor the writers and the storytellers that came before you, but also you have to give yourself space for like poetic freedom and imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first step for anyone, interested in writing one of these stories, the first step is to do the work and to read the original texts and then go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, the new Odyssey movie came out. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the end is slightly different from the popular like canon of Odysseus's life. And it's interesting to watch it because I went and looked it back up. I was like, I thought it was like different, um and it was good. It was great because that's also a retelling. It's film, but different. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the mythology retellings that I've read have been women retelling and it's giving voice to
Yes.
women. And I thought that film was interesting because it's retelling and it's showing Odysseus in a way that's not just like the you know paper copy of like what a man should be according to like the Greek mythology and like their version of masculinity. Like we get to see him as more nuanced. And I just like love that kind of exploration. I forgot what I was going to say as it related to the end. Oh, like thinking about the source material. Like it's the source material exists and it's there and we all kind of know it. But I think sometimes like when you make those just like small tweaks, that's what can take a story from just being like, oh, it's like Aphrodite, and then you like read it and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I know her now. And how did I not connect with her in this way before? And it just gives like more emotion and humanity. And yeah, I love like just those tweaks where you're like, okay, well, I'm making a conscious decision to change this versus just like not
Yes.
knowing.
Right. No, I
Yeah.
totally get what you're saying because it's intentional. It's not from ignorance. It's not because you don't
Yeah.
know the text or you didn't honor the original teller. It's because you're making an intentional choice to say something different with this story. I'm totally supportive of that. I'm always the first person when a book's been adapted into a film to know that it's going to be different. It's an adaptation, it's a
Yeah.
retelling. And I think that all of oral tradition is kind of like a game of telephone, right? Like we don't,
Yeah.
every time it gets retold for thousands of years, the nuances change, language changes. Like we don't know what the original version was even before Homer wrote it down. How much did he change from the person it came from before?
Mm-hmm.
That's just, I think that's inevitable. I always kind of think of stories as like this living being. And for them to survive, they have to adapt with the times, just like living
Mm-hmm.
creatures have to adapt to survive. So I love, giving grace and space for change. I think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I haven't seen the new Odyssey yet, but I've been reading a lot of the discourse online and a lot of what I've heard is like it's not as woke as it could be, it's woke, but like the women are not the center of the story. They could have had more screen time. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess to that, I would say that, this is a male-centered story. It's a
Yeah.
man's quest story. That is what the Odyssey is. It's not a female-centered story. And them getting female characters getting a lack of screen time feels like, kind of what we're struggling against as writers who do this work. Like for example, the character Lavinia, she's in Virgil's Aeneid, which is the story of Aeneas after the Trojan War,
Mm-hmm.
and she is only mentioned 18 times in a 10,000 line poem. She has
Oh my
18
gosh.
lines. She's his wife and she gets 18 lines of the 10,000 because Aeneas, when he
Wow.
comes to Italy, he marries Lavinia and their children go on to be like Romulus and Remus, right? And like they're the founders of the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that, Athena gets a lack of screen time in this Odyssey, I'm like, yeah, this feels very familiar. Like this is why we do this work.
Interesting. I haven't actually read very much commentary on it because I really liked the movie.
No, and also I've heard really great things about the film as well. I think what I was saying is the criticism I've seen is that the female characters don't get enough time. And I'm
Mhm.
also kind of saying, well, the Odyssey is a male centered story.
Yeah.
This is about Odysseus. It's his story of him trying to get home.
Yeah.
So, if anything, I would just hope that Christopher Nolan would flesh out these female characters so they're not just the reason why. Like, I think a lot of times in these older stories, the women are blamed for things, right? Like,
Hmm.
Helen is blamed for the war. Calypso is blamed for Odysseus not getting home. Circe is blamed for turning them into pigs. but I would hope that there's more empathy for those characters. Like you see why they do the things that they
Hmm.
do. And if we're
Yeah.
seeing why or we're like relating to them, then I think that the director is doing a good job.
Yeah, I wish you saw the movie. I want to talk about it with you so bad because it's you like really know the like, the
Yeah.
lore and the original text. I personally feel that I was impressed with the film because it is it's about Odysseus, which I mean, if you think of like all the different ways we could portray Odysseus, like it could have been very much like he's this hero who can do no wrong. And that wasn't the feel I got from the film. And we got to see for the
Hmm.
female characters, I feel like they all were really good in my opinion. So I'm curious when you see it. You have to let me know what you think.
Yes. Well, I have heard that Samantha Morton Cersei is like amazing
Yes,
and
yeah,
like she just like kills it, her scenes.
yeah.
And what's funny about the Odyssey too is that like Odysseus is kind of a messy character.
Hmm.
Like he can be really compassionate and empathetic, but he can also be kind of ruthless
Yeah.
and violent, And I remember reading one professor's, maybe it was like a Substack article, I can't remember, but a classics professor was talking about teaching the Odyssey to college age students. And she said that one of the things she hears most often from her students as a complaint about the Odyssey is how often Odysseus cries. Like he's always crying and he's crying about this and that and he's moaning and he's
Really?
sobbing. And modern, young people are like, what the hell? Why is he acting like that? Like cowboy up or whatever. And she's like, no, but this like heightened emotions and expressing big emotions wasn't seen as being like feminine in the ancient
Hmm.
world. So Odysseus acting like that and crying and having big feelings was actually seen as like normal masculinity.
That's so fascinating. I
Don't
didn't
you
know
think?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so fascinating. So almost this feels very, because I feel like there's like a lot of conversation right now about like the manosphere and like masculinity and what does it mean to be a man? And it's almost like I'm not a man, so I can't speak to that, but my outsider view is like everyone's trying to figure this out and it's kind of going through like a renaissance, I guess. And so like the Odyssey coming out now is almost like perfect timing when like there's this like I didn't realize that Odysseus was so well-rounded in in
Yeah,
Homer's
and
text.
emotional. I think he's actually an interesting character. And I mean, I do think that the idea of the journey home, like that plot line, is
Hmm.
such a universal and modern feel. Like
Hmm.
we see that plot line of just trying to get home and how physically, emotionally, mentally difficult it can be to do that. I think, that story has lasted for 3,000 years for a reason, right? I was trying to think of other stories I've read that are really like kind of poignant going home stories. And I don't know if you've ever read Cold Mountain by Charles Fraser, but that one came to mind. And it's like, the soldier who I think he deserts the Civil War or he's wounded, but he's just trying to get through the mountains back home to the like woman he left behind. Like these stories are really powerful and they're really transcendent, I think.
Hmm. It's funny because all of the ones that I can think of are movies. And I want to say, did you ever see the movie Con Air? It has Nicolas Cage
A
from
million
like
years ago.
the
Yes.
90s. I'm pretty sure in that movie he's just trying to get home to his wife after getting out of prison. Uh,
Oh, probably. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's been a long time since I saw it, so don't quote me, but that is funny. I wonder if they had like the Odyssey as like inspiration for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to like getting interested in this material, I was an English major in college, and I think that to understand like the rich world of like literary tradition and illusion, at least in like the Western canon, you have to have read the Greek myths and you have to have read the Bible as literature because like that's just such
Yeah.
a rich source of illusion and symbolism and imagery that perpetuates. So it's just, yeah, I feel like it's just like a part of the program.
Hmm. Yeah, it feels very central to who we are and how we think about the world. And I mean, there's even like a Disney movie, like Hercules exists.
I
And
mean, Nike is the goddess of victory, and we see, Nike everywhere. So, I mean, we
oh, I
live
didn't
with
know
these
that.
illusions all the time. Um,
Yeah.
so it's fun because you read a lot of these stories as a kid, right? I did. And they're like, it's like reading a comic book. It's like superheroes and everyone's gorgeous and they're having like, they're in love and they're fighting and there's magic and there's monsters. It's so, so cool, right? And then you reread the stories as an adult and especially as a woman, and you're like, oh, this is like highly problematic. Like
Yeah,
the
it's
way
terrifying.
yeah, the way these people acted with impunity is horrible. The way, women were like raped with abandon and blamed for it. Like, I think that's the work that so many writers are doing now
Hmm.
is reimagining these stories. Yeah, just from a different perspective, because I think we do care more about perspective now.
Hmm.
Even the way that we challenge like the history textbooks that we get in school, we want to hear from different groups of people, not just like the patriarchal storyteller.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm reading your book Aphrodite in Pieces right now, and there was just a line that was like Zeus said to her something like, "Be glad I gave you a husband and not to a brothel." And
Hmm.
it was like I read that and I was just like, "Oh, that is like such a like very like condensed form of the perspective of a lot of men at that time and some men today, of like, well, women exist for men's pleasure, for men's needs and everything. And so seeing a goddess who has like magical gifts and people are worshiping her and she's still having to deal with that.
Yes.
Like that's like as a woman reading it, and I felt that way with Cersei too. Like how can, of course, like I am feeling this way in this world when these women who have magic and like have these like superhuman abilities are still dealing with the same struggles. So it's like affirming and also empowering because then I haven't finished your book yet, but I'm assuming that there will be a growth and an arc and she
Yes.
probably comes into her power. And so it's so fun to read those retellings as a woman because I mean a lot like sometimes like the even the goddesses just get they are I don't want to say like toyed with, but they don't have the same level of authority as some of the male gods.
No, they almost have like an illusion of power,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I think sometimes like on a different scale, but like women in America can feel like that too, like where we've made so many strides towards, feeling equal, and yet our rights can change as we cross state lines, which is something like, a man doesn't experience. So
Hmm.
yeah, I kind of grapple with that, with the illusions of power. And then, I also have like Aphrodite is she's kind of an iconoclast. She kind of like rebels and fights back, and she's super contrary, and she doesn't like people telling her what to do. And then I also have other characters of goddesses who kind of buy into this system and we're like,
Hmm.
no, if I follow along with what they want me to do, then things will be okay for me. And they aren't, and it's like I see a lot of like girl on girl violence and like internalized misogyny that I wanted to comment on as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just crazy to think about the goddesses experiencing that too, because you think of them as, or at least I do, as these like it's a goddess, like
Yeah.
you wanna you wanna be like the goddess, and it feels very powerful. Like if I think of like if I were to say, oh, I feel like a goddess, it's like I feel, you know,
Omnipotent.
yeah, like beautiful, powerful, smart, strong, like all of those things. But then to like read these stories where they're not able to protect themselves. Like she's not even able to choose Aphrodite. She's not even able to choose who she marries.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, I know that's how it's been for women throughout most of history, but it is, oh, yeah, there's a lot of feelings when I read it.
Yeah,
So,
there are big feelings. And I think that, yeah, when you strip off the goddess label at her core, Aphrodite is a wounded woman, and I think when you're writing a character, the most important thing you have to do in those early like brainstorming stages is identify their wound. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that has hurt them? Are they aware of the wound? Like, what do they need, or what are they seeking to try and like mitigate,
Mm-hmm.
the wound? Um, Aphrodite has like an experience that really breaks her that I don't think you're at yet, so I won't spoil. Um, but I think that's also why so many people have enjoyed the Madeline Miller novel Circe, is because that goddess makes a lot of mistakes, and there's like a vulnerability to her that even though she's a witch and she's got all these, magic powers at her disposal, she still makes mistakes. She still gets her heart broken. She still, is lonely. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
these are universal experiences. And I think that when you're writing fiction, you're trying to create this like network of compassion, right? And like understanding other people, other experiences. Um, so yeah, if you write a novel where the goddess is just all powerful and like badass from page one, I don't think you're going to have that like rich emotional connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like it's true even for some of the male or more masculine gods, like thinking about how they all come to be. Like the birth stories of pretty much all of the gods are very gruesome and,
Mm-hmm.
babies are eaten, people are
Yes.
castrated. It's
Yes.
like,
It's a super violent world,
yeah.
So, um, yeah, they behave in really violent ways. And also, when you're writing these stories about gods and goddesses, I also have to kind of like suspend my like traditional human morality, because
Yeah.
when you can live forever, you're operating on a very different playing field, you
Hmm.
know. So that's also interesting. And that's so much of what Aphrodite's story is about whether love and beauty can be eternal. Because this is what she's been, kind of gifted with or inherited as her bounty. And it's like, but how do those last? And that's what she struggles with throughout the book. And I was going to go back because we were talking about male characters, and I had someone, I was at a birthday party recently, and this one guy was like, I would read your book, but I don't like feminist books because they're just male hating. And I said, well, that's so sad that you're not reading my books, because I actually think that if you read them, you'd see that I have examples in each of my stories. I have examples of really strong, beautiful male characters, because I think that's really important to showcase too. It's not always just what not to do, but it's like what you could aspire to, right? And I also have really beautiful men in my life that, I want to highlight. But yeah, I can still acknowledge that like the system is not awesome that we operate within, but that there are really exceptional guys out there as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that I feel that we're all flawed and we all are, humans. And I mean, not to get too far off topic, but I think that men are also a victim of the patriarchy too. And
Yeah.
we really see that in these mythology stories also, because you see the way that they're like these gods are battling each other and how they're just intervening with humans and sending everyone to war and like requiring that you kill the people you love as sacrifice for the gods to like give you their favor, and it's all just very toxic, and women are victims of it, but I think men are too. And that's where, talking about Odysseus crying in the Odyssey, he went through, I mean, if we like imagine like actually living his life and the amount of death that he saw, and then he just wants to go home,
Yes.
and he's gone for 20 years, which is an insane amount of time, and he's spending 10 years going home. Like if my flight's delayed and it's supposed to be a 4-hour flight and it's like a 12-hour journey, I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like I've
Yeah.
aged like
How
10
will I
years.
get through this? Yeah.
Yeah. But he's like on a boat for like 10 years. Well, I guess he's on an island for like 7 of them. So, and he doesn't remember it because isn't that the thing? Like he eats the flowers and he doesn't have a
Yes.
memory.
Yes.
But but still, it's a long time. So I mean, they're suffering too. And then thinking of like Achilles and like all of the like the a lot of the heroes in Greek mythology have to go through a lot as well. And I feel like it's almost like Greek mythology is like the ultimate patriarchy, and like kind of
Mhm.
no one benefits because they're just like immortal and all powerful, and so there's no consequences for anything that the gods do, you know? Or there are, but not like
Only within their own world, right?
yeah.
Like Zeus can punish if he doesn't like how the other Olympians are behaving, and they can
Hmm.
get like revenge against each other. But no, there's no like formal system of justice for,
Yeah.
the Olympians. Um, yeah, I think that the Odyssey is also like it's a PTSD war story, right? It's about the absolute devastation that war wreaks, not just on the people who are battling it, but the people that are left behind at home.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's why in my work, I don't have any real Odyssey plot lines that show up, but the Trojan War is. So, like,
Yeah.
if anything, I've used the Iliad way more as a resource
Hmm.
for writing my novels. There's like mention of the Trojan War at the end of Medusa's Sisters. And then there's an entire section of Aphrodite in Pieces that is set during the Trojan War because she was a part of the war as well. A lot of people don't realize that she was,
Was she with
all
Helen? Yeah.
all mixed up in that. Yet Helen is I wrote
Yeah.
Helen and Paris in Aphrodite in Pieces. There's a lot of Athena
Mm.
in Medusa's Sisters and Aphrodite in Pieces. But actually, speaking again, like what you were saying about these kind of unfortunate mortal men who get manipulated by the gods and kind of get these either impossible tasks or like outrageous asks, right? When I was writing Medusa's Sisters, I never thought I would be writing a sympathy novel for Perseus, right? Who is the hero who famously beheads Medusa. But
Mm.
as I was thinking more about his story, I had a lot of sympathy for him and his character. And I ended up totally changing my mind on who Perseus was.
Mm.
Likewise, I kind of changed my mind on Athena and who she is. Like, there's all the online discourse of like, are you a girl's girl? Like, in my opinion, Athena is not a girl's girl. I
Yeah.
don't always like the way she treats other women in her myths. Like, yes, she like Odysseus would not have gotten through it all without her. Like, put some respect on her name. Like, he needed her, but I don't always see her showing up for female characters in that way.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I have definitely a more critical approach to her in my work.
Ooh. And is she more in Medusa's Sisters, or is she in
She's
Aphrodite?
You will see her more in Aphrodite in Pieces because she's
Okay.
Ares' half sister.
Oh, okay.
So when Aphrodite and Ares, join, Athena
Hmm.
has some opinions on that, and she's a big part of the Trojan War. And in the Trojan War, in the Iliad, you see how the Olympians each pick a side. And Aphrodite was firmly on the Trojan side, and
Mm.
Athena was on the Greek side because Aphrodite's son, Aeneas, is a Trojan, and she was pro Paris.
Mm.
Whereas, like, Athena's champion was Odysseus, and he's on the Greek side. So that sets up more rivalry with them as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's making me think of did you ever see the Brad Pitt Troy movie?
Yes, yes, I did.
It's making me like remember that because I don't the gods weren't in that, but I believe they did say like Paris had Aphrodite and then Athena on the side of the Greeks. Does Achilles have a god who favors him? I guess he's like, I mean, he's Achilles, so it's just his heel, but
Well, and
yeah.
his mother is Thetis, and she's a sea nymph. So, kind of like the ocean people are gonna rally around Achilles.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
so yeah, it does kind of split. Zeus kind of plays both sides. Hera chooses the Greek side. Apollo favors Hector, so he kind of joins the Trojan side.
Mm,
But it's really fun. It's really fun to like play with that as a writer too, especially
yeah.
when you're creating modern-esque characters out of these gods and goddesses. So yeah, I recommend an Iliad reread too for people out there who are really into this material or getting excited about it because of the
Yeah.
film. And then I have a book rec as well, because I know we had chatted earlier about getting some book recs out there. A.D. Rhine,
Mm,
Rhine, has a duology of the women, basically, of the Trojan War. And it's four different women that they cover. And it's much more of like a historical fiction version, like less magic, more just like gritty
yeah.
reality.
Hmm.
I would really recommend those.
Yeah.
There's also Susan C. Wilson, and I think she writes like a very erudite, like literary fiction kind of interpretation of the Trojan War. And she has two books out, Clytemnestra's Bind and Helen's Judgment. Those are really fantastic as well.
Mm. Oh, those sound, yeah, that's, I haven't heard of those. That sounds interesting. I also read Songs of Achilles, which is also Madeline Miller who wrote Circe. And so that one is obviously follows Achilles. And
Yes. And did
uh,
you cry like a baby? Because I did.
I did, it's been a while since I read it, and I read Circe first. I've heard that like whichever one you read first is your favorite. So
Yeah, that's probably fair.
yeah. But she's supposedly working on a Persephone novel, which I think will be really cool. Um, Yeah, it's so just fun how much there is out there because I feel like there's so much to play with these gods and what they represent. Like one thing when we did the Circe episode, we were talking about how reading that book really just made me not want to be immortal. And it made me not want to be a god because they when you live forever and you're this, being with all of these powers and there are these humans you can just play with, it's kind of like, are you actually alive? Because you can't die. So what does it mean to be alive? And just like thinking about like humanity from that lens, like I feel like a lot of stories do that really well, which is like, even the Odyssey movie actually made me feel that way, just like appreciating like being human and being immortal
Yeah.
and the experience of being alive. Yeah, I think that's I love when that happens.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that this only means so much because we know we're going to die,
Mm,
right? Like these relationships, this life, these loves, it knowing that it will end gives it meaning.
hmm.
And when you take that away, I think, yeah, you do sacrifice like some poignancy, right, to experience. And for Aphrodite, as she's struggling to make sense of whether beauty and love can last forever. I mean, without giving too much spoilers of her like emotional arc, but I think what she realizes is you have to be open to change and you have to have imagination and you
Hmm.
have to continue asking questions. Because if you just accept the status quo, I think you kind of stop living in a sense.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I forget who said it, but isn't there some great writer, some great talking head mind that says like all fiction is about death? But like there's that sense that
Is it
everything we're
Freud?
writing
Is
about,
it
yeah,
Freud?
probably. And sex with your mother.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, I feel like all of our decisions, I mean, that is Freud. Like all of our decisions are we don't want to face death. And that's where I think a Persephone book, I know there are some Persephone stories, I haven't read them.
Yes,
But
there is Seeds, which I've read, which is really great. And then there's another one too, Daughter of Olympus. Those both do
ooh, okay.
Persephone.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard of Daughter of Olympus. I'll have to check that out.
Hannah
Um,
Lynn, I believe, is the author of that one. And
yeah.
Seeds is Angie Paxton. Check me out with my recall.
Oh, that's good. Off the top of, we don't have notes for that. So everyone, she just
Yeah,
pulled those out.
thank you. Well, I think that there is this world of writers who do this material, and we're all really supportive of each other because
Hmm.
I do think it's not you've read one, you've read them all in any sense. I think you read one and you kind of want to read more. And
Yes.
if
Yeah.
anything, sometimes there have been times in my life, first of all, as a writer, I struggle with imposter syndrome all the time. Like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I talented enough? Can I do this? Like, everyone else is so wonderful and shiny and perfect. It's a tough world. Oh, there's another Medusa story coming out. Like, how can I compete with that? And then I remind myself, like, how many Cinderella stories have there been
Yeah.
in this Western canon of ours? Like, and we still like Cinderella stories. We haven't gotten tired of them yet.
Hmm.
How many kind of Jane Austen or Shakespearean retellings have we done? And people still hunger for, new ways to look at this material. So I really think like we ride this tide together. Like we're all
Hmm.
in it, supporting each other.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like I know pretty much everyone I've talked to has had some sort of Greek mythology phase,
Yes,
where you go and then you're like, I'm gonna read every book I could find on this, and then you read all of them, and you're like, okay, now I'm a little insane. I'm gonna take a pause and
totally.
come
I need
back
to go read
later.
like a murder mystery or something
Yeah,
to clear the
some
mechanism.
something where someone doesn't like birth a monster, just like something a little more like less gruesome because sometimes it's pretty
Yeah.
gruesome.
It's
But
really gruesome. And there have been
yeah,
scenes that I've had to write just by nature of the violent undercurrents in these stories
yeah.
where I've had to take a pause afterwards. Like that was really hard to write. Like I am emotionally exhausted and
Hmm.
hurt by that. In Mother of Rome, my youngest was a baby while I'm writing Mother of Rome, and Rhea Silvia's babies are taken from her. Like that was really hard to write. That felt very raw to me. And
Yeah.
I do think that when you're writing a story, you have to believe in the world for it to work. And so sometimes that means that you have to like live in that story.
Hmm.
Um, and there is a sense of like when I get done writing for the day, I almost need to like shake myself off and get out of the story for a second and remember that I'm a mom and we have like, fraction homework to do and a solar system diorama to make. And it's like living in different worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's also part of the joy of fantasy or fiction in general is that you do, whether you're writing or you're reading or you're watching a show or you're playing a video game, like you get to be in that world. And sometimes the world is just like, wow, I'm glad I don't live in that world. And then you come back to reality and you're like, thank God I like live here. But then
Yeah,
other times you're like, well, I wish I could just take some of those magical powers with me because that would be great. Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I am grateful for the life I live. I am so privileged to live this life, right?
Hmm.
At the same time, it's such a beautiful escape.
Yeah.
Um, I wrote about this in a piece for Fantasy Cafe, but I don't mind sharing. I had a little bit of postpartum anxiety after my daughter was born. She's my middle child.
Hmm.
I won't get too political, but like Trump had just been elected. I was feeling really depressed to have a daughter, um, and anxious in this world,
Yeah.
and I started getting really into reading fantasy again. And I had stopped for a very long time because I think I picked up this genre bias in college that like those kinds of works aren't real literature,
Yeah.
you know? Which is pernicious. I think Ursula Le Guin says it's a pernicious snobbery to call genre fiction any, like implying that it's less than. But
Hmm.
I picked it up. It's like my internalized misogyny that I pick up. Like I definitely got there. But when I had postpartum, reading fantasy was the ultimate escape because it was like I could pick up a sword or put a snake on my head and just fight back in a way I felt like I couldn't. And
Hmm.
so I think it was really, really cathartic to
Hmm.
have that.
Yeah, I think to me, I mean, as a fantasy reader and writer, I definitely live in another world most of the time, like 90%
Yeah,
of the time. But
no
it was,
judgment.
I think like, I believe it was on a recent podcast episode or I read it somewhere, but someone had said that the idea of fiction that we have today, like literary fiction or just like fiction, just like the general fiction category at the bookstore is something that's more modern, that like old stories were fantasy. Like you think of like Beowulf, like there's dragons in
Yes.
that, or like the Greek mythology or the Bible, like all of these older stories, they had some sort of magical element in them.
King Arthur, in the
Yeah.
Arthurian legends,
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Scheherazade and the Thousand and One Nights. Like, yeah,
oh my
I
gosh,
agree with
exactly.
you.
Yeah.
Fantasy is at the core of our oral tradition and our even our written stories, and yet we've decided that it's its own section in the bookstore.
And it's looked
You
down
know?
upon by a lot
Yeah.
of readers, and like because I was an English major too, and now I write fantasy. I'm hosting a podcast about fantasy, and it it's funny because we can read, Hamlet, which has a ghost in it, and we can read like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I remember reading that in college, which I actually don't remember that, but it was a King Arthur legend, and we read Beowulf. We read all of these that do have these, they would be labeled as fantasy today. And but because it's modern writing, like it's like, oh, that's just for like the people who don't want to live in reality. I'm like, well, doesn't everyone not want to live in reality right now? But also it is like it's such like I feel like it's so intrinsic to it's like taking the act of reading a step further. Like if the act of reading is experiencing someone else's perspective, experiencing a world where there is magic and like you can have power, like you were saying, like we read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've read that book yet. It came out
I read
last.
Addie LaRue, but I haven't read her newest one. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of she calls it like the darker sister of Addie LaRue. So it also is dealing with immortality and kind of that like, picking up a sword like as a woman, and I mean in this case they're vampires, but having that agency and that like ability to like walk the streets at night. Like that's like a big part of the book is these women and they're out there and like, what happens when you like are viewed as a woman walking the streets at night, but you're actually a vampire. So it's like being able to experience that and kind of live through the characters is really beautiful. And yeah, I feel like there needs to be some sort of, I don't know, almost like reckoning with like the larger literary community about this, but
Yes.
everyone likes what they like, and that's kind of where I'm at. But I feel like every genre is people are reading and escaping, and what makes something better than something else?
Well, totally. I am not into genre snobbery. I will read anything because I can
Yeah.
learn something from every kind of book. There's always
Yeah.
something I can pick up. I think I always tell people like be a slutty reader, like read it all. Um, and Ursula Le Guin she writes some really fantastic essays in defense of fantasy and science fiction.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, it's either C.S. Lewis or Tolkien, and I can't remember which one. And I know they're not the same person. I don't want to, to pull that. But one of them says like one day you'll be old enough to start reading fairy tales again.
I think that's C.S. Lewis, yeah.
Yep. And I kind of had that experience myself. I would also say I have so much to say on this topic because I get really heated and worked up. I get really activated. Um, like magical realism to me is like one of the more brilliant art forms. And it's
Hmm.
all magic. Like, how could you not say that that is literary, or
Yeah.
like high art? Like, it's
Yeah.
really beautiful what those writers, from South and Central America have done with that genre.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I also think that, like you were saying, with imagination and with imagined worlds, I think you have endless capacity to say and do things that a realistic setting doesn't allow you to do.
Hmm.
And you can make, it's like going back to the boy who cried wolf. You can have an allegory that maybe is more powerful and more lasting because there's this fantastical element to it. Like I don't know if you were a Buffy the Vampire Slayer watcher back in the day.
I wasn't, and I should have been. I watched Charmed, which they're like kind of
Yeah, they were like, yeah,
siblings.
sister
Yeah.
shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I remember the episode where she loses her virginity to her vampire boyfriend, right?
Mm,
Angel. And what happens is he becomes like an evil vampire again afterwards because he like gets his soul back. But all I saw was a teenage girl who has sex with a guy that she's in love with, and then the next day he's mean to her.
yeah.
And that is such a powerful allegory for young sexuality and like
Hmm.
being vulnerable and then someone becomes a vampire to you. Like I just think that it gives artists like kind of like an endless way to manifest message.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's almost, I don't want to say easier as a reader to experience it, but sometimes it's so close to reality, some of these stories, that you can't it's just too emotionally heavy. So you like it's almost like you can't even get to the like themes and the takeaways because you're just like so weighed down. Like I'm thinking of like we read the fifth season by N.K. Jemisin for our book club in
Hmm.
May, which is like has a lot of themes of like slavery and there's a lot of violence against children and there's just a lot of stuff and it's in this fantasy world and I feel like reading it it was still very hard to read, especially because I have a toddler. She was like this, she's essentially the same age as one of the kids in the book, and it was still hard to read, but having like the lens of the magic to experience it, it's like okay, well this isn't our world, like we don't live here, but then you get to read it and you get to have empathy for people in our world versus like one of my favorite authors is Toni Morrison, and reading
Yeah.
something like
The bluest eye
Beloved,
or
yeah,
beloved.
The
Yeah.
Bluest Eye. Like you read one of these books and it's like, I mean, so good, but you're not always in the place where you can mentally do that. And I think that fantasy gives another way to explore some of those similar themes. And some people aren't going to pick up that book because maybe they do have too much like internalized racism where they don't want to read Toni Morrison, but they'll read the fifth season and it's a way to experience that. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that also some of the dystopian literature, which I mean, I guess maybe you would classify as science fiction
Yeah.
or speculative fiction. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of like Chain Gang All Stars, right?
Oh,
Or
yeah, I
like,
love that.
well, it's this idea of a alternate United States where prisoners can fight their way to freedom, like in like basically like Coliseum style death
Oh
matches.
my gosh, like a gladiator type of thing.
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
a reality show. So they are
Oh my
filmed, so
gosh.
everyone is watching it. There's like arenas like football. I mean, it's making a lot of statements about abolishing the prisons and what our incarceration system looks like in the United States and our
Mm.
obsession with like reality TV and even like the spectacle of football and how violent that is and how destructive it is on these bodies. Like I think these science fiction dystopias, spec fiction novels can serve as a warning. How many
Yeah.
times recently have we seen people like going back to Orwell or Ray Bradbury and being like, they kind of warned us this was going to happen.
Hmm.
Um,
Or Handmaid's Tale.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Handmaid's Tale, exactly.
Yeah. That is, yeah, as you were describing that, I was like, I don't want anyone to know about this book because then someone's gonna be like, let's make this reality. It would make so much money, which is really sad.
Isn't it scary?
Yeah.
It's like the tech billionaires who like they read these. Well, I don't think a lot of them read these books. Like, I don't know if you've seen
They read
Joyce
the
Carol
synopsis.
Oates. She just like roasts Elon Musk on Twitter. It's kind of my favorite thing. She basically just like calls him like illiterate all the time and like uncultured. It's pretty funny.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
I haven't seen that.
yes, but it's like they took all of the things like what not to do and they're like, oh, let's do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I feel like a lot of some of the inspiration for some of the stuff that's happening in like Silicon Valley is like sci-fi or fantasy.
Mhm.
They're like, let's make this real, and it's like, did you read the source document? Because I don't think
I
we should
know.
make
Did you
this
read the
real.
book all the way to the end? Because I think we need to talk about your comprehension. You're kind of missing what the theme, like the message was.
Yeah, I know. Or it's like, well, there's a book I actually just got from the library. I have it in the other room, but I can't remember the title. But it's about essentially the Greek gods, I think, like live, until present day, and then they become like these billionaire families. And so it's like saying like, oh, actually like these like if we think of the Greek gods, these are very toxic, unhealthy, like emotionally immature beings, and then putting them in these positions of power. And I haven't read the book yet. I'm gonna read it probably after I finish your book because I'm just like, oh, it feels so good. And like thinking about like the power structures, like when we were talking earlier about like, well, they have so much power and they have to, you know, they have to do something to feel alive because they're not actually alive. Like it does feel kind of parallel with some of the people in power or power in
Yes.
quotes, like having a lot of money right now. Because if you have all this, like you do kind of view yourself as a god and like sitting on Mount Olympus with your like golden throne, and then you're just kind of, they're acting the same way. So I'm excited to read that book. But yeah, I feel like there are so many parallels with our current system right now, and it's kind of scary. Yeah.
Absolutely. I talked about this more when with Medusa's sisters, but there is this sense of like absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Like, so
Mhm.
whether it's a god or a goddess, but like any system where like people can rule and act in any way they want with no checks at all
Mhm.
is a broken system. So when you give voice to the people like beneath that hierarchy, in a way it's like an act of subversion, right? It's a way of it's resistance, it's rebellion, it's like, it's fighting back. And I kind of dig that.
Hmm. Well, and it's interesting in all of these dystopian novels, the thing that they come for first is literature. Like they start burning
Yes.
books. Like thinking about
Yes.
Fahrenheit 451, even in like 1984, were there even books? I just remember like they had like the duck speak. It's been a while since I read that.
And the one
And
where it's just screens.
yeah,
Is that for Fahrenheit 451 though, where they live in the
I
houses and
think
it's
that
just
is because they
screens?
have the screens and they just like watch it all day. And
Hmm.
it's been a while since I read that too. But yeah, it's like and then we see that with a lot of books being banned currently. And yeah, I'm like, how do I segue back to Greek Greek
I
retells?
know. I get what you're
But it's
saying, but
all like it's all related because I mean, in a way, what there's like, it's the perfect way to subvert like the systems, like to talk about gods. Like you're not directly saying, you're not writing a book where like, Zuckerberg or Elon Musk is like the main character or like the character's a stand-in for them. Like you can be like, well, it's Zeus who's doing all of this. And
yes.
we get to explore that in a different way than like writing like an actual fiction piece about billionaires or like nonfiction, where that would just be so so heartbreaking. But you can read it, and we have the gods who are doing it, and it's like, okay, yeah, this isn't right. I'm proud to be a human and maybe not the all powerful person, and we shouldn't let them control us, in the way that they
Right.
do.
Or take our art and turn it into, the AI slop. But like, I
Yes.
also, should I hold my tongue more when it comes to politics? I don't think so. Like, I think
Mhm.
that all art is really political, and I think that all
Yes.
art is
Yeah.
is really contributing to this social conversation and cultural conversation that we are trying to have right now. And I mean, I see that even in like children's books. Even a children's book can be a political statement. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how to separate the two. That's just not my thing.
Mhm. Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, you have a book about Aphrodite, who is, the goddess of art and beauty and music. And um, you mentioned Addie LaRue earlier, and I feel like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is, to me, that book is like a love letter to art. And every time I read it, I feel that way. And I just thinking about like AI art and things like that. Like there's like a quote that's like art's not supposed to be beautiful, it's supposed to make you feel. And I think that that's so important to remember when we're reading or we're looking at, paintings or photography or film or whatever. Like it's supposed to connect you with being human, and that's what makes it
Yes.
beautiful. And it should be in a way an act of rebellion, even if the rebellion is just like saying, hey, maybe Aphrodite wasn't just beautiful and sleeping with everyone. Like maybe she was more complex than that. And um Yeah, I love it. I could talk about art like all day. 'Cause
Same. Well, and when I was writing Aphrodite in Pieces, and I'm thinking about love and beauty, and I realized I think the intersection of love and beauty kind of perfectly is art,
yeah.
right? And I knew I wanted to use the Venus de Milo somehow. I ended up using it as the frame narrative for Aphrodite in Pieces. She's posing for her likeness, and as they explore what this piece could be, she's telling different stories of her life. It's almost like her Eras tour, right?
Hmm.
And she's explaining her love stories, her revenge stories, her regrets, her heartbreaks, who she is on this journey to figure it out. And that being said, I did a lot of research on the Venus de Milo, and I thought a lot about the Venus de Milo and what she means, in to our culture. And
Hmm.
you mentioned the cover. The cover of the book, when I was talking with the publisher and they asked me what my ideas were, I said, I want a pop art Venus de Milo.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Yeah.
that's what it is. It is a zoomed in of the Venus de Milo's face.
Yeah, I feel like I would
Um,
like for everyone to
Yeah,
see
but
it.
with
Yeah.
pop art colors. And if you look each section, I think they did it so beautifully. Each section that introduces a new era is
Hmm.
more of the Botticelli Venus coming.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you'll see that as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so art is just like I almost wish I could go back to school. I mean, I guess I could literally just go back to school, but like go back and be
Realistically, yeah.
yeah, and be an art history major. Like I loved being an English major, but there's so much to art throughout history, and a lot of it is, paintings of these gods and goddesses. Like they're everywhere, even in the Renaissance, which is like very far removed from that time period. Like I don't know the exact numbers, but isn't that like the 16 or 1500s? That's not,
Yes. Yeah, like 3,000 years, 2,000 years, where,
yeah.
no, and if you think about that too, these are also retellings and reimaginings of these
Yeah.
ancient stories in art. And so Aphrodite in Pieces kind of goes into this too, but it's interesting to see how she is portrayed in her image, like her artistic image, in the Renaissance. How do they color her, right? Or what accessories do they put around her? There's
Mm,
more angels that show up next to her. Like, when does she go from being this kind of like love and fertility goddess to being kind of like a whore? Like there
yeah.
is this journey that also parallels the fine art journey as well.
Hmm.
And religion and fine art and how they tie together and how they
Yeah.
influence each other. That's what I mean when I say like all art, we're just having a communication, we're always in conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like the conversation is what makes it interesting. It's to see someone
Mm-hmm.
else's perspective. And for me, not to make this about AI, but I've just seen a lot of, discussions and conversations about, well, what's the future for writers? And as someone who's trying to get an agent, sell my first book, like it's like, is there a future in this career? And I personally feel that there will always be books. Like, I mean, even when like ebooks came out, like they were like, it's the death of the like printed book. And it's like, well, books have been around for a long time. And I think that is someone going to have the same reaction to an AI created story as they are for something where you're like reimagining this goddess and like creating, like putting your own unique view on it and like having that conversation, and then where your book sits in conversation with like Circe, which is another like reimagining, or some of the others you mentioned. Like it's like you get to go and then you get to see all the different ways people interpret this, and I just feel like there's such a beauty to that, and it's not something that can be replaced. I don't know.
I hope so. It's kind of what I tell myself when I'm getting, this existential angst about AI is that, AI is not a creative, like life source. It is just all AI is capable of doing is kind of regurgitating what's already been done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not necessarily creating or saying something new. I hope that's true. I really hope that's true.
I feel like it is because I mean, even especially thinking about like the Greek mythology and like how many different ways it's been retold over the years, it's like people love these stories, and maybe there's a reimagining where the AI is, Hermes now, like, or something, and that's just how he's morphed into. Ooh, someone should write that book. I would read that.
Right. Totally. There you go.
Uh, yeah, well, I feel like we've talked about so much. This was so fun. Do you have any final thoughts on mythology or any of the things that we've talked about today?
No, I would reference, have you ever heard of the Bechdel test?
I
Or
have.
the Bechdel test?
Is that the
I
one
mean,
where like the women like are they speaking in the book? Is that right?
yes, yes.
Yep. Okay.
So basically the Bechdel test is like, are two women only having conversation about a man?
Mm,
And you want, so to everyone out there who's like trying to write and you're writing conversations with your female characters, make sure to keep that in mind that they're not just talking about something related to a man, because that is just limiting our complexity and it's dulling our dynamics. So I always try to keep that in mind as well in the back, just a
hmm.
little food for thought.
Yeah. Yeah, and thinking about these I think thinking about what you're reading too and is it passing that test? And
Right.
yeah.
And I think it was originally created for film, not for books, but it
Mm,
translates.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, just my advice to aspiring writers is always just to like read as much as you can
Hmm.
and ask good questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Well, for anyone who is now very excited about your books, especially, I feel like we talked a lot about Aphrodite in Pieces. How can they follow you, stay updated on you? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. I do have a website and newsletter. I only send out newsletters like every 3 months or so, so I will not be like spamming your inbox. And then I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is at Lauren J. Bear, and also Threads as well. That's kind of my like preferred social media. I try to do TikTok, but I'm not super good at it, but I'm trying. I'm an
So
old dog,
maybe
but
you'll
I'm
get
learning new tricks.
there. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm excited to read your other books now too, after talking
Thank
about this,
you.
which I already was, but now I'm even more excited. And I'll link to all of those in the show notes so people can find you. And then your books are available everywhere you can get books, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they should be, hopefully. Yes.
Yeah. And if it's not at your library, request it so your library gets a copy.
Yes, please do. Request it, shop local, write a review.
Uh, well, this was truly so fun. Thank you so much for joining and chatting with me. We went to so many different places. I mean,
Yes.
everyone should see our notes. Like we went so off script in like the best way.
Totally.
It was so fun. But this is such a rich topic. Like I feel like we could do like a month of just like interviews, like talking about this. And yeah, it's so fun. So thank you so
Endless.
much for
And
joining.
yes, I wish all of you more magic in your lives.
Thank you. I am trying to send it out to more people. I hope everyone is feeling that as well. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you had as much fun as we did. As always, make sure you subscribe if you're not already subscribed and you want to see future episodes, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.